Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to today's webinar. We have an expert panel and a discussion I'm looking forward to answer your questions about leveraging the practical opportunities of Gen AI and AI to deliver smarter CX. I'm looking forward to a great discussion here. As we look at organizations that are just beginning to identify some of the core strategies and benefits of AI and Gen AI specifically. I'm Derek Top, Research Director with Opus Research, and as part of today's discussion, we're going to run through some of the a self-assessment of contact centers and how you can build an informed implementation roadmap and leverage some of the practical opportunities that AI delivers. But let's go ahead and introduce ourselves as speakers here. I'm Derek Top. I'm the Research Director and Senior Analyst with Opus Research. We cover things like AI and Gen AI and how customer care organizations and contact centers are really leveraging these within identify the core benefits and really kind of provide some business value. So we'll get into all of that later in terms of some survey data that we have and what we're seeing out there. And also, like I said, the self-assessment framework that will help you leverage it. So let's meet our speakers as well. So I'll pass it to you, Amy, and introduce yourself and tell us a little more about you.
Hi, I'm Amy Stapleton. So I'm a senior analyst with Opus Research. I have a background in designing conversational systems, and I cover conversational AI, generative AI, and conversational intelligence.
Cool. And Steve?
Steve Natras. I'm the VP of Product Management at Enghouse Interactive. And despite the grand title, it really means that I have the privilege of leading a team of product managers. They're the real innovators. They're the ones that really are driving our Gen AI story and working out how we can really use Gen AI in contact centers.
Great. Yeah, and it's a fast evolving world right now, right? There's a lot of new technology out there. A lot of education needs to happen. A lot of questions are being asked, and we're happy to do that. To that point, this is a live webinar. We want you to ask questions out there. You should see an Ask a Question button below your little console. Feel free to ask questions throughout the entire webinar. Make comments, however you see things, and we'll get to them. We have a Q&A planned at the end, but we also do want to make sure that we address any questions you guys have throughout to know, make sure we're getting our questions answered. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get into the agenda. This is our this is us again as speakers. So just so you know who we are, and then I'm going to pass over to Amy, who can talk a little more about what we're going to get into today, and go from there. So Amy.
Yep. Thanks, Derek. So we're going to start out with talking a little bit about situational awareness. In particular, what are the technologies that we have available to us today, and how do they compare to what most contact centers are still using? What are the shortcomings of that? And as Derek mentioned, I think in the introduction, we have the results of a survey that we did of about, I think it was 250, Derek?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So 250 enterprise contact center professionals, they did kind of a self-assessment on where they are with various facets of their adoption of conversational AI and Gen AI, and that will kind of inform some talking points, I guess. Then we have developed what we call a self-assessment questionnaire around your customer experience and whether you're getting the full benefit of the new technologies that we have available in AI. We'll talk a little bit about what might be holding you back, and then we'll end up with highlighting some of the practical applications that you can use within the contact center if you do leverage AI to its fullest extent. And so with that, I will jump into the situational awareness here. So the fact is that even though we have new technologies available, most contact centers are still using an older technologies. If you think about the traditional IVR, and I have it depicted here with a very kind of convoluted call tree. The problem is we don't really understand natural language very well with these older technologies. In a typical IVR, you're not even expecting to understand what the customer is saying, so you're not even inviting them to talk, right? You're just asking them to push a button to get routed, sometimes to some kind of an automated service, or a lot of times to a human agent, but we're not taking, obviously, full advantage of any natural language processing capability within a traditional IVR. Then if you think about chatbots that we have today, they are a little bit better. I mean, we are hoping to understand the customer, but again, these are older technologies. The natural language processing that we have available to us is pretty clunky. It's kind of represented by this cute sort of older robot there. He's trying his best, right? But the issue is that out of the box, this robot doesn't really understand natural language. And if any of you have built conversational systems and continue to do that today, you know that it's very time consuming and it doesn't work that great. So first of all, you have to figure out, determine what are all the possible intents that the customer might have. It's like, I want to track my order, or I want to pay my bill. So for each of these intents, you have to come up with a long list of sample utterances, and how they might be saying that. And again, these are, even if you're using the current, or let's say the traditional pre-generative AI version of conversational AI, you're still like spotting keywords and doing things that have a very narrow machine learning model. So the problem is it's not that great for customers because it doesn't really understand what they're saying, right? And the other problem that people don't talk about that much, but really is an issue, is that it's difficult for your employees that are maintaining these systems, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time to manage all these intents, manage all these sample utterances, look to see where your system is not working very well so you can go back in there and update it. And, it's just not that great when you think about where we are today with the technology that's available.
Absolutely. So, and the rigidity of the scripting is the difficult part, is you can't deal with that human nature or the human need to do something slightly different, slightly off menu. And that creates havoc. And the customer expectation is what's causing the problem with these. They are very robust. They do what they were designed to do.
Exactly.
Yes, they're very difficult to build, but they and to build and maintain is difficult. But they're very robust once you get them going. But it's those nuances, that subtlety of I want to do something that isn't catered for, and the whole thing collapses, and you don't get any of the benefits at that point. And that's what's driven us to today. That's what's brought us to this the way we go forwards.
Yeah. Right. And I think it's interesting that you say that these systems are robust, and we might have time to talk about it later, but I feel that may be one of the reasons why companies aren't jumping ahead into the new technology, because they feel very comfortable with what they have. But yeah, so
it's certainly the feedback we're seeing as well. So we like the way it works for us as a business. What they're forgetting is that it's really not the business that needs to be the beneficiary here. It needs to be the customers that they're serving, and it's not serving their customers, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say that's a good segue into the survey, but you maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we talk about kind of meeting customers where they're at in terms of their expectations. It is a really challenging thing for every organization out there, and we have done a survey, and this is actually over a couple of years now. So we do have a kind of a year-over-year snapshot on what is the maturity of conversational AI. So when you think about self-service, think about IVR, and kind of moving beyond IVR to what is the kind of more advanced conversational AI solutions. We've seen a bit of a slowing rate of maturity. So really there has been when bots were first introduced 8-10 years ago, which we started to cover, there was a kind of explosion of new ideas and new opportunities, and trying to identify those really kind of complex conversations and really kind of letting customers speak the words they want to speak. But when it came to actually those use cases and those tasks that are involved, it is hitting a roadblock. It really is hitting some level of only so many things it can do. And if you look at this particular survey data, there is 20%, which is there's some level of maturity out there. And this is again a kind of self-assessment. Where do you think you're at when it comes to conversational AI? Very, very few have actually considered themselves a leader. So when it comes to that level of kind of how far can you go with the current first of all traditional IVR, but then what the kind of the next step up when it comes to conversational AI, we are hitting some roadblocks that are out there. So
I agree. It's that I think you touched on it there. It's the limitations of the existing conversational AI. There's certainly so many things that you can do, but you need to spend a lot more effort for that final piece. So when you're looking at it, you're looking at the complexity of what I want to achieve as a business is then being hampered by the increasing complexity of the implementation choices for what even now is, we're 18 months or so into the Gen AI world. Conversational AI is still complex to build, as Amy was saying earlier on. You still have to work out all your intents, you have to work out all of the different routes, and that is starting to stifle what level of complexity you can achieve with conversational AI. Right. And that's the limitation.
Yeah. Well, luckily, like you said, we had a whole new universe of AI introduced about a year and a half ago, and it was Gen AI. So, what is, Amy? Go ahead and walk us through this in terms of what is Gen AI, and why is it important?
Okay, and I don't want to get too deep into this because I'm not an expert on transformer technology, but so that this is a transformational technology, and some of the key points are it's autoregressive modeling, which means that it can predict if you give it a string of either language or images, it can predict the next best token, the next word, the next pixel. So we know that not only can it understand, but it can generate information as well. It's based on this novel transformer architecture with self-attention. So from a standpoint of transformer, it can read a large amount of text at one go and understand how all of it relates to each word relates to the other word in context. So if you said, give me an image of a fluffy blue elephant, it's going to know that fluffy and blue refers to elephant, and it will give you a picture of a fluffy blue elephant. The other thing that's really interesting is that it can train itself. And so companies like OpenAI, they've built these models, they've fed it a lot of data, and as it processes this data, it actually creates a high dimensional world model in its electronic brain. And all of these things together mean that it is out of the box, it's capable of understanding natural language much better than any of the systems we had previously. And it can also generate output that is pretty convincing. And again, if you provide it with the right information, can be very useful. So if you think about that technology and you compare it to what we had previously, we have this image of the much sleeker, more intelligent looking robot to represent this. So out of the box, you now have something that understands natural language. You don't necessarily have to go through defining all of your intents with sample utterances. The customer can say something, and because this model has been pre-trained, it's going to understand it. You can have a much more open-ended conversation. Also, the speech recognition models that are based on the same technology are very robust. So you can say things, it's going to understand it, whether you're typing or talking. And it gives us, it opens up all new possibilities. I mean, a lot of possibilities that we can use in the contact center that we may not have even thought about previously. So it really is a revolutionary technology. And what we want to talk about as we go forward is how can we leverage this to improve both customer, employee, company experience going forward.
Yeah, the watershed moment, of course, is it was the release of ChatGPT, but the GPT as a technology has been around for a little bit longer than that, not that much longer.
Right.
But the way I describe it, and the underlying technology is very different from this. For the technologists listening and watching, don't get upset with this particular
Right.
statement, but if you think about predictive text, so when you're typing on your mobile phone and it's predicting the next word based on what you've just said, it's that, but on a much larger level. That auto-regression that's what it is. It's looking what's just gone and saying, well, what's most likely to be next? But it's what's most likely to be next on a much bigger data set. And the GPT models were always very good at the natural language processing techniques and things that were the fundamentals of what we want to do with this technology in contact centers. And that's what's driving the big change. And that big leap, that watershed moment in November 2022 that's changed the world is is the number of things it already understands. That
Right.
native level of understanding is so different, and so it's able to create those human-like responses because it has so much data in it, and that can lead to some of the other problems that we'll touch on in the next few slides.
Yeah, exactly. And as we go to the next slide, which is again going back to our survey, it is touching on where are people at when it comes to generative AI, and in terms of their just awareness, let alone the evaluation and ultimately the implementation of Gen AI to customers. And again here, as this is the survey of 250. This is also North America, but it's we kind of it's a kind of pretty consistent across regions as far as where people are at when it comes to their evaluation of Gen AI. People are aware of it. Yes, they know of it. And you look at that kind of top bar. It's around evaluating the use of it, understanding these benefits, or at least kind of being aware that there are benefits out there for Gen AI across deployments.
It's hard to miss it at the moment.
Exactly. It is everywhere, and that's what's part of this too, is that consumers are we people are playing with it. We look at Claude or Perplexity or ChatGPT or whatever, and so we're constantly kind of integrating this as part of our daily life. How do you then make that as part of your employee existence or experience? And just along those lines, we do see employees being encouraged to look at this and really kind of identify new ways to develop it when it comes to actually implementation, especially in a customer facing way, which, as we'll get into, does there are potential pitfalls when it comes to the Gen AI in a open customer facing deployment, and there's very few deployments out there. I mean, this is still early days for a lot of this stuff when it comes to actual identifying the right use case, putting it in the right place, and then kind of keeping it reined in with guardrails to make sure that you're not going off in terms of some of the questions that customers might answer or might be
absolutely
asking.
And I think it's those guardrails, and we'll touch on those later on, but it's those guardrails that leading to and the need for those guardrails, which leads for those the numbers in those bottom two rows. That they're making it available accessible to our customers. They're worried about it, and that worry and the need for understanding exactly what's going on is what's going to reduce that disagree from 63% downwards. And so that's as people understand more about what's happening, and maybe the experimentation will help with that, it's going to come forward. But as you say, it's maybe the future, but right now it's every conversation we're having involves these technologies in some way, shape, or form.
Well, and that also gets into this, this drive for digital transformation and contact centers, and Enghouse works with all of the kind of the large contact centers and how they're using these new technologies. There is this kind of on high, like what is our strategy with AI? What is our strategy with Gen AI? And so there's this kind of let's go forward fast, and then also at the same time make sure we don't do it wrong. And that's true. That's true for bots as they were introduced 10 years ago or whatever, but especially now with Gen AI and AI as a kind of integrated to everything we do as a business, and how do we put that within customer care organizations? As Enghouse knows, like this is something that you need to do effectively and do smartly. So along those lines, Amy can walk us through some self-assessment questionnaire about it.
Yeah. So we often hear companies say, we've heard about AI, we've heard about Gen AI, but we're not really sure how we can leverage it, how we can use it for our own purposes. What can we do with it? How can we apply it? We came up with a self-assessment questionnaire. There's 8 questions in here. And the point is, ask yourself, do you have these capabilities in your organization? And if not, then AI can help you with these capabilities. So the first 3, I think I'll kind of go through those together because they are more from the perspective of your customer. So the first question is, do you have self-service channels basically for your customer to get answers to routine questions? And if you do, are those digital channels or are they digital and voice? So do you offer self-service channels in both voice and text for your customers to get answers to routine questions? And secondly, on those digital channels, do your customers have the ability to interact with your agent or your chatbot using their preferred language, right? Because we talked about how these large language models have the ability to understand language, but they can understand more than just, English. And then finally, when it comes to the questions that your customers can ask, are you offering them self-service capabilities that are better and broader than just your typical FAQ, where they can go in there and ask specific questions where you have pre-scripted answers? Are you opening it up so they can get answers to a lot of questions, and are they receiving the correct answer? So those three things, again, ask yourself, does your company have the ability to do all three of those right now? And if not, those are areas where you can leverage AI in a practical way to make these things happen. Right. So any thoughts on?
Yeah. Those self-service options, which, as you said, are the first three, they're almost the traditional view of artificial intelligence. It's that,
right.
Especially the first and third is very much about self-service channel. Do it yourself. Don't contact me. It's this customer service ethos, and it's thankfully going away now. But this ethos, I don't want my customer to contact me. I want them to do it themselves. I want them to go away. Whereas actually you want to engage with your customers, and that's the difference that generative AI can really bring, is that difference between, I don't want my customers to talk to me because it's really expensive for me to service them. I want to engage with my customers in a cost-effective manner, and that's what AI can really make the difference in self-service. It's driving that difference, and the ability to talk in their own language is also about meeting. We've heard this phrase meeting the customer where they are. Mm-hmm. What language they want to speak is obviously part of that, and not forcing every customer in the world to talk English just because you are based in the US or you're based in the UK or wherever, and all your agents speak English, is that next step, and it's that next piece of where AI can really help drive better customer experience.
Yeah, and I also think that as people use ChatGPT, at home, they sometimes have the expectation now that they will be able to go to their favorite brands and interact and in their time whenever they want, get an automated response. Are you seeing that as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, is the customer expectation? We talk about customer expectation increasing exponentially, but we talk about it every year. So at some point, that's got to peak. That's got to come to a peak at some point. But the increase in expectation, or the change in level of expectation, is maybe that's a different way of looking at it, is changing all the time, and you need to be able to adapt. And where AI can practically help is helping you achieve that level of expectation. You can move faster. You can deliver more nuanced interactions with your customers in a way that you couldn't have done previously. As we talked at the beginning, that rigidity of the traditional IVR and the self-service channels, you couldn't do it. You couldn't be as reactive as you can be today.
Right. So then if we move down and we look at the fourth question, this is about summarizing the interactions that you've had through various channels, either voice channels, customer calls come in, or through digital channels. A lot of companies either are not doing these summaries of these interactions, or they're having their agents do them manually, which can take a lot of time. And now with AI, it's quite easy to have those interactions summarized and stored somewhere where they can be analyzed and used. So if your company is not doing that, it seems to me like pretty low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's exactly the phrase I was going to use.
Yeah.
Low-hanging fruit is exactly the same phrase. It is one of those things that, why wouldn't you do this? The benefits are immediate, and the risks are so low that or there aren't any risks, because you're not exposing the AI to your customers, which is there's this natural nervousness around that, but you're using it as a tool to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of your agents. They're going to appreciate it, not only in terms of not having to write up the manual notes at the end of the call, but also in having good notes if that customer ever rings back. That the quality of agent experience is just going to be increased just with this one simple practical implementation choice.
Yeah. And then if we talk about more like low-hanging fruit, the next one is, what about capturing and transcribing all voice calls? So again, this is something that pre-Gen AI was possible, but you had to have some fairly sophisticated language models to do that, sometimes some proprietary technology. But now with generative AI and its capabilities, this should be
And it
fairly
used to be
easy, right?
yeah, and it used to be really costly as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
you talked about when you talk about look at the individual pricing amounts per minute, it didn't seem a lot. But you don't have to have a very big contact center for traditional transcription costs to be very large. And that was preventative for being able to explore all the other things you can do once you've transcribed a call. Generative AI models mean that this can be done far more cost effectively than ever before. And that's helping out. I mean, admittedly, it means that NVIDIA, and we've seen the news this week, NVIDIA's share price is phenomenal on the back of all of that, because you need those chips. But the practical application of this is then it opens up so many other options just by doing this.
Yeah.
And that takes us to having the ability to get some insights from all of these interactions with your customers. If you're transcribing the voice calls, then you can leverage analytics, again, fostered by generative AI, to understand what your customer is asking for, what some of their perhaps common complaints are, and you can shed a lot of interesting light on what's happening within the business.
If you think about it, there's a huge amount of data that all our contact centers capture that we're not utilizing within our businesses. We're capturing this information, and it's our customers talking to us and telling us things that we're not listening to, or that we can't listen to at the scale in order to really generate business insight to make a business decision on. So being able to take these interactions, whether they're voice or text, and actually get deeper understanding of what's actually going on, and categorizing them and looking for that insight and driving that insight into business decisions becomes so much more easy.
Right. So moving on to agent tracking, agent improvement, when you have the ability to get all of this information and store it, and also leverage generative AI to analyze it, something that you can do, which really hasn't been possible before, is you can track and score agent performance in more of an automated way. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of advantages to doing that. Not only does it save time, you're not having your supervisor have to go in and listen to every call an agent has and manually score those, but you can reduce perhaps some bias, things like that. So again, this could be not only a time saver, but very good from an agent perspective, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's two parts to this. Is the one thing, there are two sides to every conversation: what the customer is saying and what the agent is saying, and both have important information for businesses today. But in terms of being able to do the automated analysis and automated scoring, you think about if you do it manually. If you're lucky, if you're really well organized in a contact center today, maybe you're listening to 3 to maybe 4 or 5% of your calls.
Right.
That means 95 to 97% of your calls are not being listened to. There's so much data that's not being analyzed. We had a recent customer. We've implemented this with our technology in one of our recent customers, and in the same time period, they did 250-ish manual and evaluations, and with the automated technology, they did 30,000. So wow. Completely different scale. I mean, potentially, maybe they should have had more QA people, but that difference in numbers is just huge. And means that you get all that insight, and then because that's being delivered in a prompt manner to the agent is getting that feedback whilst they can still remember the call. And then go, right, and get that guidance is about, well, you need to improve this. You need to go to do this. You should have done this better. Yeah. They're getting that feedback, and that because of the human nature, you forget something. You're having dozens of phone calls a day. You're not going to remember everything that you did 3 days ago. But if you've got it in the following hour, you go, I remember that call. Okay, I understand where I can do to improve myself. you're just naturally going to have a better agent experience. That's a game changer for the agent experience.
Right. Okay, and this last one is not so much how can AI help you, but it's important to have a comprehensive strategy if you're going to be using AI or generative AI to securely implement it. Make sure you're safeguarding the company and your customer data, as well as putting guardrails around any type of generative response that you're going to be providing to customers. So there are techniques and ways to do this, and it's just important as you're going through that list of practical applications that you also remember to develop the strategy before you start, turning anything on.
Yeah, actually, and sorry, just to, I want to kind of ask the question that came in, tying the first point here and the fourth point. There's a question that came in around recording laws and do they apply to transcription? So we talk about safeguarding customer data, and does that's both in terms of kind of obviously within the live call itself, but then as you transcribe, capture, and then utilize that data, what are organizations doing to make sure that the laws apply? I know, Steve, you want to address that a little bit in terms of...
Yeah, I mean, it's two sides to this. Again, it's one of these things that you need to think about the response, how you putting those guardrails around the response, and how you're safeguarding the company from incorrect responses, but also how you safeguarding the customer data and making sure that you have the appropriate measures in place to either anonymize and mask the data before you push it through any particular AI model, or that you trust the location, the storage, and it meets all of those things that you need to meet with in terms of your handling your customers' data. The same rules apply. It's still customer data at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think, and those are the risks and that are, I think, being addressed specifically both the customer facing and then also kind of the back end integration or back end kind of storage and support. And I'll move on to the next couple. We have a couple more data points around from the survey, and then we'll finalize some of the capabilities that are powered by Enghouse. And there's a question already in here about quality. Just in terms of what are the biggest obstacles that AI and realizing the AI potential. This is part of the same survey that we talked about, and this isn't necessarily Gen AI specific, but more broadly, how are organizations looking at to implement this stuff, and what are ways to identify challenges, and the lack of back-end integrations was number one, and you'll see all of these are pretty high, so it's more of a kind of a ranking. They're all pretty challenging when it comes to overcoming challenge, finding the potential. But this, I think, speaks to some of we talked about it, when it comes to agent assistance. So, the call summary or in self-service, it's like, moving to a transaction or refund. Like, how are you able to integrate all of the full workflows and business processes that your organization can have to really maximize the AI potential? That's also true for workforce optimization and agent performance that we just talked about as well. So all of those are challenges from a technical perspective to really kind of get the full potential of AI. But we're also seeing some level of employee acceptance, and that has to do with introducing new tasks for their own job and or understanding this new technology, let alone the kind of more the bigger challenge around it is AI taking my job? Is that something that people are really considering, and how do you get employees to adopt and accept what is in some ways their next the next technically taking on the job. So we're seeing that immature technology. That's just it's always evolving. And lastly is this customer acceptance, that there is more and more, as we talked about, people are playing with AI. They know it. They recognize it as a tool that they utilize in their own lives. Why aren't the businesses that I work with using these technologies? So it's there.
I think those last three are almost can be lumped together in terms of the addressing the situation, in terms of the understanding. Once the understanding grows, you feel that the technology is actually mature and ready because you understand how it works. And you mentioned the right word just then. We were talking about from a customer perspective. This is a tool that I use in my day-to-day life. Why aren't the businesses that I'm engaging with also providing me access to the same tools? The employees have the same. Will start to have the same approach as well. They will say, I can use these tools in this way, And then once it's seen as a tool that helps me do my job better, then there's less of a risk within Enghouse. We don't believe that these things are going to remove the need for human agents. We see them making their jobs better and easier to do. So that's the big difference there. And back-end integrations, that's always going to be a challenge. You know, it's been a challenge for every technology into evolution that we've had in the contact center world. I need it to be integrated into this. I need it to be integrated into that. That driver is always going to be there. And then every time you introduce something new, you have to go around and do the back-end integrations again. That's it's completely understandable, but it's also that blocker in getting to that potential.
Yeah, no, I mean, everyone has so many different systems and how they all connect and work together, and that's where, you know, working with solution providers is really benefit for a lot of organizations. And this is just this last kind of data point is to talk through again, what are the capabilities here? What are the opportunities? And this gets into what we call conversational intelligence, the kind of capturing of conversations, both from text and voice, and really how do you leverage this information? And we talked a little bit about this, and then the first thing, of course, is around mediation of customer issues, making sure that you're addressing the customer need, but building a knowledge base that can be utilized for both agent assistants and co-pilots. We hear a lot about that, but also around self-service and bots and training bots to really kind of become smarter and can answer more larger complex questions from customers. Script compliance, agent training. This gets into performance and you know, kind of the business needs that agents can do, and then some cross-sell upsell opportunities. We touch on this, you know, and other talking points we have, but around the revenue generation opportunities that AI can bring. It really is true from a contact center perspective. What is next when it comes to both a cross-sell, upsell, but really kind of there is a large level of AI that can help really kind of get people to a transaction quicker.
The piece there is once you're servicing your customers' needs, then you can start doing cross-sell and upsell. So you make that piece that barrier for solving the customer's issues smaller and smaller, so that the agents can solve these questions more easily and more quickly. Then you get that cross-sell upsell opportunity, and that drives the piece. But knowledge, and just on touch on the knowledge bases side, knowledge bases aren't just about the virtual agents, the chatbots driving better business, you know, making it easier for those pieces of technology to do what you're applying them for, but it also makes a difference for the human agents. Being able to have a better knowledge base, more accessible information, helps them do their jobs better as well, and that drives, you know, as I said, drives the resolution of customer issues.
Yeah, no, exactly, and I think that is becoming a tool that a lot of agents are looking for. So I just want to note too, there's a question that came in around proprietary versus customized solutions, and I think we'll address that at the end. After this next slide around capabilities, but yeah, I want to encourage folks to start plugging in their questions and if you have any questions or comments or anything you've seen so far that you want to react to. So just to mention that. But Amy, you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So this last slide basically lists out what we see as the core capabilities that are very useful within the contact center that can be powered by practical AI. So it maps back to that set of questions that you asked yourself about your capabilities. And when we look through this, we can see that if we're really utilizing some of these new technologies, we should be able to have a 24/7 virtual agent that's a lot more capable at understanding and providing responses. We should have automatic web chat translation, transcription service. All of these other capabilities should be part of, you know, the solution that you're leveraging, because those things are possible now with the technology that we have. And I think Enghouse is offering many of these capabilities in its solution.
Yep, absolutely. So we're offering all of these within our solution, and a few more besides. But the key here to these is really what's practical for your business. That's the piece you really need to remember out of this. And if the one takeaway I would encourage the audience to take away is what's practical for my business first. And there are so many different aspects. A virtual 24/7 virtual agent or chatbot that isn't the answer to every business's problems. There may be other things, and to really understand what makes your business tick, what's going to be best suited for your business, is how you drive the use of AI. And of course, as you both kindly have said, Enghouse, we believe we're keenly placed to be able to answer these questions for businesses and help them come to the right answers about what's most suitable for them.
Yeah. Cool. And so in terms of, we have a Q&A now. So like I was saying, like people, please feel free to ask questions and comments. We have a couple in here already that we'll address, and then kind of have some final comments. But yeah, Steve, just in terms of this question around automated QA algorithms, are they customized by, are they completely proprietary? As we talked about, kind of the back end integrations and implementation of all of this technology, there are folks that really want to have and have specific business needs. How are you working with customers when it comes to proprietary technology versus their kind of individualized, personalized, customized solutions?
I mean, so in terms of the automated QA, I mean, we've been doing automated quality analysis for just over 2 years now. We started originally with our own proprietary technology, which meant that the scorecards were limited, I'll be honest, in terms of that. That was the traditional approach, but our most recent evolution here means that the customers can go in and set their own scorecards. Whatever business question that our customers want to evaluate their agents on, they can go in and actually ask, set up the systems to ask those questions and evaluate the agents their way. We talked about removing bias. That's a key part of that, because every agent is analyzed the same way. Now, there are certain things you have to do when creating that. You have to make sure that the question is objective. You can't have a subjective question when the AI is doing it, because your AI doesn't understand what's special about your particular business. So you have to be objective and you have to provide that information. But that's the driver, and it's completely customizable within a few minutes by our customers.
Yeah, well, and that's part of this other question is around how long does it take to implement? Like what kind of training is necessary to from the supervisor standpoint to get that QA solution and automated QA solution involved?
I mean, it depends on the supervisor, of course. Always the answer. But we're seeing it doesn't take more than a few hours to train them in how to do this. In terms of and giving them practical examples and having them work through and coming up with their own questions. A few hours training is all it takes.
Oh, cool. Great. And then a question came in here around what about the use of LLMs to fetch and propagate content to agents' desktop? So I don't know, Amy, you want to kind of address that a little bit in terms of, and we talked a little about co-pilots and knowledge assistants and, that kind of stuff. And then this is actually asking directly about LLMs, like, so in terms of, kind of building the right tools for agents on their desktop.
Yeah, well, we are seeing a lot of capabilities around agent assist, and when an agent is on a call, if they need certain information, then again, an LLM that is, if you're providing the call context and the system knows that you need to be able to figure out like a process for canceling a payment or something, then that the LLM can help go retrieve the information from the knowledge base and immediately make that available to the agent, and an agent assist type of capability. Do you guys do something like that in your solution?
Yeah, we do too. Yeah, absolutely. That touches on the knowledge bases we talked about in terms of being able to source any number of different pieces of information, to source it directly to the agent so that the agent doesn't need to go and search for it themselves. There's always a risk though with that. So just to counteract that, you can provide access to a whole bunch of data. Does that mean that that particular piece of data was supposed to be used with that particular caller? If you're in for example, if you're in a multi-brand contact center, how do you know that piece of information is suitable for that particular customer? It's something that we've been using within our own solution, and we used our own proprietary technology to be able to help with that problem before getting to the LLM to do that piece of generative work. The LLM can be sourced with loads of different pieces of data, but until you actually clarify which pieces of those data are suitable for answering the question, you've really got to be careful. And that's where the human in the loop, the human understanding, oh, hang on a second, that question isn't quite right answer. You have that problem. And until you solve that problem, you've got to be very careful about what you feed the LLMs in terms of the data for an agent's desktop.
Right. Cool. Well, we are at time here, so I'm gonna. There's a question about pricing I'd love to get to, but let's just make that for another webinar altogether, because there is going to be some questions as AI scales in organizations. How are organizations able to develop the pricing models that suit them, and we might see all of those AI price come down as they're commoditized. So, but with that, I just want to thank Steve and Amy and all of you for joining us today, and appreciate your questions, appreciate your comments. If you have any more questions, or I should note too, there is going to be a white paper that does summarize a lot of this information that we've included in this webinar that will be something for you to look for in the near future. So thanks for everyone for being a part of this discussion today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.